This video is going to show you how to authenticate with the Google Ads API, and you're going to be able to make your first API call without even needing a real life account. There's a ton of just little steps that Google forces you to take, mostly related to authorization. I'm going to walk you through how to do all of them. It really is very simple, but there's a lot of little buttons to push, which is why I made this video. By the end of this video, you're going to have 4 different codes. You're going to have your developer access token, which is basically the code Google assigns to an MCC. It's like the Google Ads specific authorization code. You're going to have 2 OAuth credentials. Anytime you integrate and you say like you act on behalf of a Google user, like you're saying, I want to create an ad group in this campaign on behalf of this person, you need to go through the Google OAuth system. I'm going to explain that in more detail. And finally, you're going to have the refresh token. If you've ever granted access to an application that said, hey, this app wants access to your Google Calendar, like Calendly, that actually gives them something called a refresh token. It allows them to make changes on your behalf. So I'm going to show you how to get that for any user. And last thing, this is going to be a pretty short video. This is going to take you just from 0 to 1. If you're looking to build a full-scale application that manages user credentials and, lets people make changes to the Google Ads API automatically, this will get you started in the right direction, but ultimately you're going to have to take a few extra steps, and I will include some resources for you in the description. All right. To get started, we're going to start with the developer token. I promise this is the most challenging token to get. It's super annoying. You have a bunch of little hoops, but at the end of the day, you just got to get it done. So you do actually need an MCC. This is a Google Manager account. I'm going to include how to create one in the description. So if you don't have one yet, please go ahead and do that. And again, this is basically Google's way of identifying, who made the API call. Oh, it was Austin's MCC or your MCC. This is the page that I'm following. I'm just going to walk through it and show you all the places to go. In this step tool, it tells us to go to Tools and Settings, Set Up an API Center. Go ahead and fill out this form. It's really simple. Don't overthink it. After this, you're going to be given a test token. I'm going to talk about more what this test token actually does in a second, but if you're planning to use this on live accounts, what you're going to want to do is click the Apply for Basic Access, and you're going to get taken to this most beautiful form from 2004. And after you fill this out, you're going to actually be able to operate on live accounts. To continue with this tutorial, you actually don't need to wait. You can create a test account under a test MCC. It'll take you like 5 minutes. Again, in the description, I'm going to have a link to how to get that done. All right, developer token is done. That, I promise, was the hardest one, the most form fields. And if you're thinking that was pretty easy, I got some good news for you because the rest are going to be even easier. Back down to OAuth credentials, you're going to have a secret and a key or something like that. I actually can't remember what they're called. Following the documentation that Google lays out, we basically need to create a Google Cloud project. And within that project, we need to do a couple of things. So I'm going to walk you through that right now. All right, so you can see I already have projects, but I went ahead and clicked the create new project, named the project whatever you want, and then you're going to be taken to this dashboard. Once you're in here, it'll take a second for the project to actually be created. Once it has been, make sure you select that project, go to the search bar, search Google Ads API, and then just click enable. All right, next step, we're going to create the OAuth consent screen. That's something that looks like this. Basically, we ask people, hey, can we get credentials to act on your behalf? And for your reference, I'm going to follow the guide that Google lays out right here. So within your Google Cloud project, go ahead and search for credentials and click on this second one with API. Create credentials, OAuth client ID, and configure consent screen. Click external. This basically means you're going to allow anybody to use it. If you're only letting people with the same domain as the domain that is registered with your Google Cloud project, like a company domain, use it, then go ahead, just click internal. And then you really can put whatever app information. If you're only planning on using this internally, this really doesn't matter. If you want to verify it for anybody to use it without getting like this weird warning screen, that's when you're going to want to, have an application homepage, a privacy policy, etc., etc. We're going to ask them for access to the Google Ads API. So within this scopes section, type in Google Ads API, select it, and update. Save and continue. Save and continue again. And back to dashboard. Now with our consent screen created, we're going to go ahead and create credentials. I usually set web application. This is just the simplest way to do it. Of course, if you're making a desktop application, you can change that later. For the authorized JavaScript origins, the client that is used by like the Python library, the PHP library, actually needs to have your localhost enabled. So we're just going to copy in this localhost IP address. And then finally, you get your credentials. Go ahead and copy and paste these somewhere safe. One last little step, all we need to do is click this push to production, the publish app, confirm, and there we have it. This is live. This can ask users for their credentials and actually get what's called a refresh token that we can use to interface with Google Ads on behalf of users. Last thing, just to say one more time, this will work perfectly for up to 100 users, but you do have some limitations if your app isn't verified. Every time you ask for someone's refresh token, in this example, we're just going to be getting our own, you'll be presented with this ugly, Google hasn't verified this app. Are you really sure you want to give them access to everything you can do in Google Ads screen? That's okay. Just in the future, if you want to avoid that, it's a really simple and free process to actually verify your app. All right, 3 out of your 4 tokens are down. We have the Google Ads developer token, we have your OAuth credentials, and finally we need the last thing, which is the refresh token for the user. Again, this basically says we have the authority to make changes to Google Ads as someone else. Now, this should go without saying. If you get these tokens, please don't just commit them to GitHub or email them around, because literally anything you can do with Google Ads, including spending tons of money, can be done with this set of credentials. And worst of all, if it gets leaked, it'll look like it was you who did it. So please exercise caution. This refresh token, there's 2 types of tokens when interacting with Google Ads. There's an access token and there's a refresh token. If you're using a library specifically made for Google Ads, developed and published by Google, you don't need to worry about the access token. You only need to put in the refresh token. And again, if your app is not verified, this refresh token is good for a full 7 days. So this is pretty simple to do. And I'm going to walk you through something called the OAuth playground, where it's basically Google's friendly tool for developers to generate refresh tokens. I'm also going to have this page in the description and the OAuth playground link. It's really handy because it's pre-populated. You can see here what you need to do is put in your OAuth client ID and OAuth client secret. And once you have them copy and pasted, go ahead and click Authorized APIs. You get to choose who you get to log in as, continue, and then finally, again, hit continue. You will be presented with this screen, which says something about a 302 not found. Just click the big blue button, and you will be presented with your refresh token. Again, please keep this in a safe place. I hope you're ready to start writing some code because we have everything we need, and I'm going to show you how to make your first API call, and I'm going to introduce you to a free repository that I have some examples in. Everything's already set up for you. All you need to do is plug in your credentials. At this GitHub repo, which is publicly licensable code, you can go use this for whatever commercial, personal projects you want. I'm going to start with the boring thing, which is this .env file. This does not get committed to GitHub. This has your developer token, refresh token, client ID, and client secret. I also put your account ID and your MCC ID, and I'm going to show you why I have both of those in here. Again, your account ID is the account you're currently working on. That's the Google Ads. If you try to add it like to your MCC or get access, that's the code you ask for from customers. And the MCC ID is just the ID of your manager account, if you have one. If you're just directly attached to an account, you don't need to do this. But if you only have access to this Google Ads account via an MCC, you actually do need to put this in here. So I am going to walk you through how to make a Google Ads client. This is basically an authorized client that then can perform actions like querying for data, creating ad groups, creating ads, etc., etc. So this function I have in the make client package accepts an MCC ID and which defaults to an empty string. So again, if you actually do want to operate via an MCC, you do need to attach it to the Google Ads client like I show here. This is all very simple. It's just a Google Ads client. We load the credentials from a dictionary after getting the config from our environment file, and then we return a Google Ads client. If you want to test this out right now, go ahead and just click this play button, and it ran without errors, so we are good. One thing that I have found to be really helpful on all my accounts is analyzing search terms. You can do really fancy things like n-gram analysis, build negative keyword lists. So the query that I'm going to show you guys is how to query every single search term that has ever come through your account, which you can then use to analyze the data. So again, if you're not that familiar with Python, I do have this if name equals main, which just allows you to run the file from the file without calling it. So I am going to walk you through it. So the arguments we have are the account ID, the MCC ID, and the file name. So this is actually going to output your results into a CSV. If you want to load that into a data science library, I find it's just handy to have it in a dead simple file format. But the only thing that you actually need to pass through is this account ID. So let's walk through it. Up top, I create this full file name just to, just a Python utility class to create where we're actually going to save the file, so make sure it's cross-platform. So after we have the file name, again, if you don't pass anything through, it's just going to default to search terms. As you're working on multiple accounts, it might be useful to not override your past query. We're going to make this client, and then we're going to make the Google Ads service client, which just is where we can execute these functions from. Here I have a query. As a little bonus, I'm going to walk through the query builder with Google Ads so you can actually build your own queries and get anything you want really, really simply. We're going to create a search request, and we're going to stream this, so it's actually a more efficient way to get data. We're going to set the account ID, and we are going to create the query. Finally, I open this file name, the results page, and create a way just to write to the CSV. Again, I apologize if you're already really familiar with Python and I'm going over really basic stuff. I start by writing the header row, which really is just, again, it's this search term, cost, etc. And then I iterate through the stream. So Google Ads API is actually built with gRPC and protobufs, which is a lot less friendly than something like JSON. So if you do debug it, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So I actually destructure things to get the fields that I want. So you see this metrics equals rows.metrics. The reason I know the name of the field I am accessing is because the query actually has like metrics.ctr, metrics.clicks. So I know the metrics is going to be row.metrics, and it's actually going to be named the exact same thing from the query. And then finally, we're just going to write each row to the CSV. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to click this nice little play button. It's going to run for a few seconds. This account has about 1 million in spend. And within this query cache, I have my CSV file with my search terms, campaign name, costs. It's in micros, so you're going to have to do some currency conversion to get it actually into the correct decimal. As mentioned, here is the Google Ads API query builder. So if you're looking to build any query to get data from Google Ads, it's broken down into different types of views. So on the left, we have every single different type of view that you can pull from. I'm at the keyword view, but there's also landing page view, really anything that you can think of that you could do within the Google Ads UI, you can do from here. So I click to select my average CPC, the keyword text, as well as the campaign name from my keyword view. All I need to do is copy and paste this into my query, change the fields that I access, and there we have it. It should print out nicely to a CSV. So YouTube, in this video, I showed you how to get all the necessary access tokens for your Google Ads API. We had special guest appearances from Fidel, who is now sitting over there, and this is Zodi, who doesn't like being held. I hope you find this useful. Again, this is just the nuts and bolts, nitty gritty, super boring stuff to getting your Google Ads API integration working. There's so much you can do. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment about what you want to see up next.